You mean I'm uninvited? From my own family's Christmas dinner? I asked into the phone, my voice thin but steady. A sigh crackled back. It was my daughter-in-law. Linda, it's just immediate family this year. We're simplifying. You understand? Immediate family? I repeated, my knuckles white around the phone. Your simplifying seems to erase the woman who raised your husband. The silence stretched like a canyon between us. I could hear her breathing, calculating her next move. Then she lowered her voice to that tone I'd grown to despise, saccharine and sharp. Please don't make this hard. We've already told everyone. The invitations are sent. The menu is planned. Merry Christmas. The call ended with a click that felt like a slap. A second later, the family group chat pinged. Family Christmas, nuclear only, without my name on it. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages I could no longer respond to. Pictures of gift wrapping parties I wasn't invited to. Menu planning discussions that didn't include my famous stuffing recipe. The children asking where Grandma was, followed by swift topic changes. I stared at my tree, small, quiet, lit in the corner of my living room. The ornaments my husband and I had collected over 40 years trembled in my vision. Each one held a memory they were trying to erase. The angel on top, crooked from when little Emma had insisted on placing it herself 3 years ago. The handmade clay stars from art class that spelled out Grandma's love in wobbly letters. All of it suddenly felt like evidence of a life they no longer wanted to acknowledge. What would you do if your own family tried to lock you out of Christmas? Walk away? Or rewrite the night? Tell me in the comments. And before we dive deeper, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss our next story. The next morning, I was still in my robe when the doorbell rang. A courier stood there with a box and that smug smile delivery people get when they know they're carrying trouble. A note sat on top in my daughter-in-law's perfect handwriting. Please return these. The knitted stockings you made last year. They don't fit our color theme. Also, returning the Christmas ornaments the children made for you. We need them for our family tree. Thank you for understanding. Sarah. My heart stopped. Under the note were the little stockings I'd stitched with each grandchild's name during those long winter evenings after John passed. Red wool for Tommy because it was his favorite color. Green for Emma with tiny silver bells sewn along the cuff. Blue for little Marcus with a snowman I'd embroidered by hand. I traced the letters with my finger, remembering how my arthritis had ached but I'd kept stitching anyway. My eyes burned with tears I refused to let fall, but beneath the stockings were the ornaments that broke me completely. Construction paper angels with school photos glued in the center. Popsicle stick reindeer painted brown with googly eyes. A clay handprint painted green with "Grandma, I love you" scratched into it. Each one a treasure I'd displayed with pride, now deemed unworthy of their perfect tree. I set the box on my kitchen table and stared at it for an hour. Then I called my neighbor, Helen. They returned the stockings. I whispered into the phone. "Oh, Linda," she breathed. "That's just cruel. And the children's ornaments, they want them for their own tree now. That woman has ice in her veins." Sunday came, and I dressed carefully for church. If they wanted to play happy family, they'd have to do it in front of God and everyone. After service, I walked toward my son with determination. He saw me. Then his face went pale. He pivoted toward his wife like a child seeking permission. "Mom, we'll call you after the holidays, okay? We're busy." His voice was strained, like he was reading from a script. My daughter-in-law stepped closer, her arm linking through his possessively. She forced a smile for the pastor who was watching nearby. "We're keeping it intimate this year. New traditions." The word intimate felt like a locked door, but I noticed something in my son's eyes, a flicker of pain, of guilt. He wasn't the architect of this cruelty. He was just too weak to stop it. New traditions, I repeated loudly enough for others to hear. How lovely that they don't include the grandmother who helped raise those children. Several church members turned to look. Sarah's smile became more strained. Linda, please don't cause a scene. Oh, I'm not causing anything, I said sweetly. Just admiring your new approach to family values. Mrs. Patterson from the choir looked scandalized. The pastor cleared his throat uncomfortably. My son grabbed Sarah's arm. We should go. As they hurried away, I heard little Emma's voice. Why can't Grandma come to Christmas? And Sarah's sharp whisper, because Grandma is being difficult. I ran into my neighbor Betty at the grocery store. Oh, didn't know you'd be alone for Christmas, she chirped, then immediately looked mortified. I just assumed. It's fine, Betty. What did you hear? Well, your daughter-in-law was at the bakery yesterday. Bought out half the store. 3 pies, 2 cakes, fancy cookies. Said the whole family's coming, even her mother from Phoenix. Must be such a festive time. My mouth went dry. Her mother from Phoenix. But not me. I nodded and kept moving, my grocery basket suddenly feeling heavy. Oh, and Linda? Betty called after me. She mentioned something about family photos, professional ones. Said she wanted to capture just the core family this year. Core family. The phrase followed me home like a cold wind. Christmas Eve arrived gray and bitter. I had spent the morning baking. Force of habit, really. Gingerbread men with careful icing faces. Sugar cookies cut into stars and trees. A tin full of the peppermint bark the children always begged for. At 3 o'clock, I loaded it all into my car. Maybe if I showed up with gifts, with food, with love, maybe they'd remember who I was. I drove to their house in the gated community they'd moved to after John died. The one with the guard who'd known me for 3 years but now looked at me like a stranger. I left the tin of gingerbread at their gate with a note. For my grandchildren, from Grandma who loves them. A guard stepped out before I could get back to my car. Ma'am, I'm told not to accept deliveries from outsiders, he said, apologetic but firm. Outsider. The word hit me like a physical blow. I stared at the tin in my hands that had changed their diapers, braided Emma's hair, taught Tommy to tie his shoes. Could you at least tell them their grandmother came by? He shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, I have my orders. I drove home with the tin still warm on my passenger seat. That night, I sat in my recliner with the lights off except for my small tree. My phone buzzed. Sarah had posted an old family photo on social media, cropped neatly so I wasn't in it. The original had been taken at last year's Christmas. I remembered because I'd been the one holding the camera timer, running to get in the shot just as it flashed. In the cropped version, there was an awkward, empty space where I should have been. But the caption made my blood boil. Our circle. Always and forever. Blessed Danchar family Banir's tradition. Always. Except me. The comments poured in from friends and relatives. Beautiful family. So blessed. Traditions are everything, I wanted to comment, to tell them the truth. But what would be the point? I put the phone face down and sat in the darkness. The grandfather clock John had left me chimed 11 times. I pulled my husband's photo from the mantel, the one from our last Christmas together. I held it to my chest and spoke to him like I had every night since he passed. John, they barred me from Christmas, said it's not my place anymore, said I'm not immediate family. I traced his face with my finger. Your son just stands there and lets her do it, lets her hurt me, lets her poison those children against me. The house creaked around me like it was settling into sadness. Do I beg them to let me back in? Do I swallow my pride and apologize for whatever I've supposedly done wrong? I set his photo under the tree and wiped my face with the back of my hand. No, I whispered to the empty room. No begging. I stood up straighter, feeling something shift inside me. A strength I hadn't felt since John died. We build, don't we, honey? That's what you always said. When they close a door, we build our own entrance. I moved to my desk and opened a folder. Contacts from the seniors circle, the church choir director, the community center manager, the caterer who still called me Ms. Williams with respect. All the people who knew my worth when my own family had forgotten it. If they would close a door, I would open a hall. I moved fast and silent. Because dignity doesn't announce itself, it arrives. First, I called the Elm Street Community Hall. Mrs. Henderson? It's Linda Williams. Is the hall available tomorrow evening? Christmas Day? Well, yes, but I'll take it. The big room with the stage and the piano. Linda, are you all right? You sound... I'm planning something beautiful, I said, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Something that will remind this town what Christmas really means. Next, the caterer. A full Christmas spread for 100 people. Roast turkey, honey ham, sweet potatoes with marshmallows, green beans with almonds, cornbread with real butter, mashed potatoes with gravy, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie, peach cobbler, and apple crisps. Mrs. Williams, that's a lot of food. What's the occasion? Christmas, I said simply. Real Christmas. Then I called Pastor Mitchell at home. Pastor, who's alone this year? I know you always keep track. He sighed heavily. More than you'd think, Linda. Mrs. Doyle's family is in California. The Harris twins don't have anyone since their mother passed. Young Maria Rodriguez, her husband deployed last month. Several of our senior members. Send them, I said, my voice growing stronger. Tell them Christmas found them. Tell them someone remembered they matter. Linda, what are you planning? I'm planning to show this town what family really means. I called the children's choir director. Mrs. Patterson, it's Linda Williams. Would the choir like to sing tomorrow night? I'm hosting a Christmas celebration. But Linda, don't you have your own family? I'm about to, I interrupted. A bigger one than I ever imagined. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, making calls, ordering supplies, planning every detail. Party supply store for decorations, simple but warm. None of Sarah's sterile perfection. Toy store for gifts, books and scarves, toy trucks, dolls, puzzles, art supplies. I labeled them carefully. To someone who matters. Each tag written in my best handwriting, each gift wrapped with care. At 5 in the morning, I printed a simple sign for the door. Christmas, for everyone who was told not you. Then I called my son's house. 1 ring, 2, 3. Mom? His voice was thick with sleep. It's 5 in the morning. Is everything okay? Everything is perfect, I said calmly. I'm calling to let you know that if the children want to see their grandmother on Christmas, they'll know where to find me. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm talking about choice, Michael. You have one to make. Where will you be? Where people who understand family will be celebrating it properly. Mom, No pressure, I said gently. Just truth. If you want to be part of a real Christmas, you're welcome. If you prefer your wife's version of family, that's your choice too. Silence on the other end. I wish you all a Merry Christmas, I finished. I truly do. Mom, wait. But I hung up. Some conversations need to end with action, not words. Their side of Christmas morning, bright house, every surface gleaming, long dining table set with matching plates, the expensive ones Sarah had registered for, a perfect tree with color-coordinated ornaments and those generic stockings from Pottery Barn. Mine conspicuously absent, of course, but also missing were the children's handmade treasures, packed away because they didn't fit the aesthetic. Is Grandma Linda coming? Emma asked over breakfast, her voice small. Sarah's smile was sharp as crystal. Grandma knows the rules, immediate family only. But isn't Grandma immediate? Tommy asked, confused. Not this kind of immediate, Sarah said, her voice getting that edge it got when she was annoyed. Michael sat at the head of the table, staring at his eggs. Daddy? Marcus, the youngest, tugged on his sleeve. Where is Grandma? She always makes funny faces when we eat our vegetables. She made other plans, Michael said quietly. What kind of other plans? Emma pressed. Sarah intervened quickly. Adult plans. Now who wants to open presents? But the children seemed subdued, looking toward the door as if expecting me to walk through it with my arms full of presents and stories. Michael checked his phone under the table. A text from me with a photo. A long buffet line in a decorated hall, steam fogging the lids of chafing dishes, elderly people in their Sunday best hugging near a glowing piano. His face went pale. What is it? Sarah asked sharply. Nothing, he lied, shoving the phone in his pocket. But Emma had seen it too. Daddy, was that Grandma in that picture? Where is she? My side of Christmas. At 4 o'clock, I stood in the Elm Street Community Hall, surveying my work. The room was transformed. Simple white lights strung along the walls. Round tables covered in red tablecloths with centerpieces of pine branches, pine cones, and ribbons. The stage decorated with garland, and the old piano polished until it gleamed. A mountain of wrapped gifts piled near the Christmas tree we'd set up in the corner. The buffet tables groaning under the weight of real Christmas food. At 5 o'clock, the doors opened and winter's breath swept in. People came slowly at first, uncertainly. Mrs. Doyle with her walker, dressed in her best green dress. The Harris twins in thrift store coats that were clean but worn. Young Maria Rodriguez carrying her baby, trying not to cry. Deacon Miller rolling a cart of blankets for anyone who might be cold. An elderly man I didn't recognize, led by Mrs. Patterson from the choir. Is this really for us? Mrs. Doyle asked, her voice trembling. Yes, I said, taking her arm gently. This is for all of us. I set the first plate in her trembling hands, piled high with turkey and all the fixings. When the children's choir began Silent Night, their young voices filling the hall, the room warmed as if the walls themselves remembered what love sounds like. More people arrived. Families I recognized from church who'd been quietly struggling. Senior citizens from the community center who had nowhere else to go. A young couple with a toddler, new to town, no family nearby. Soon the hall was full of voices, laughter, the clink of silverware, and the rustle of gift wrap. I moved between the tables, making sure everyone had enough to eat, that no one sat alone. This was what Christmas was supposed to feel like. Back at their house, around 6 o'clock, the formal dinner was progressing with military precision. Conversation topics approved by Sarah, her promotion, the new car, the vacation house they were considering. Nothing messy, nothing real. The children picked at their food, glancing toward the windows as snow began to fall. Daddy, Emma said suddenly, I miss Grandma's stories. She always told us about Christmas when you were little. Michael's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Sarah's laugh was brittle. Well, we're making new memories now. Better ones. Better how? Tommy asked with 8-year-old directness. Sarah's mother, visiting from Phoenix, looked uncomfortable. Children, perhaps? The doorbell rang. Sarah frowned. We're not expecting anyone. Michael went to answer it. 2 carolers from our church choir stood there, cheeks pink with cold, snow dusting their shoulders. Behind them stood Pastor Mitchell. Hello, Michael, the pastor said warmly. We're making rounds, inviting anyone who might want to join a larger celebration tonight. They handed him a flyer. On it, Elm Street Community Hall, 5 to 10 p.m. Everyone welcome. Come as you are. At the bottom, in smaller print, hosted by Linda Williams. Michael's face went ashen. We're fine, thanks, Sarah called from behind him, but the children had heard. What's that? Emma asked, running to the door. Oh, it's a Christmas party, one of the carolers said brightly. Your grandmother has put together the most beautiful celebration. There are presents for all the children, and singing, and the most amazing food. Our grandmother is there? Tommy interrupted, eyes wide. Pastor Mitchell nodded. She's been working all day to make sure everyone in our community has a place to celebrate Christmas. She's quite remarkable. The children looked at each other, then at their father. Daddy? Marcus said in his little voice. Can we go see Grandma? The room held its breath. Sarah's face was a mask of fury. We have our own family celebration. We agreed. No, Michael said quietly, still staring at the flyer. You decided. I stayed quiet. He looked at the children, really looked at them, and saw what I had seen, that they needed more than perfect place settings and color-coordinated decorations. They needed love. They needed family. They needed their grandmother. Get your coats, he said. Sarah's voice sharpened to a knife's edge. Michael, we discussed this. We made a decision. You made a decision, he said, standing straighter. About my mother, about my children's grandmother, without really asking me what I wanted. He looked at Pastor Mitchell. Is she really doing all this? Son, your mother has put together one of the most beautiful Christmas celebrations our church has ever seen. There are probably 80 people there right now, all because she couldn't stand the thought of anyone being alone on Christmas. Michael's eyes filled with tears. She did this because we shut her out, didn't she? Pastor Mitchell's silence was answer enough. Daddy? Emma tugged on his sleeve. Can we please go see Grandma? Michael looked at his wife, at her perfectly set table, at the expensive presents under the designer tree. Then he looked at his children's hopeful faces. Let's go, he said. They stepped into our hall at 7:30, just as the choir was finishing "O Holy Night." The children spotted me immediately and ran across the room, weaving between tables of smiling strangers. Grandma! My babies, I laughed, dropping to my knees as they collided with me. You found me. Their hugs were fierce, desperate, like they'd been holding their breath all day. We missed you so much, Emma whispered in my ear. I missed you too, sweetheart. More than you know. Behind them, Michael approached slowly, his face a mixture of shame and wonder. He surveyed the room, families eating together, elderly people laughing with young children, the pile of gifts, the decorations made with love instead of money. Mom, he said, his voice breaking, what did you do? I threw a Christmas party, I said simply, standing with a child still clinging to each arm. For people who matter. Sarah entered last, her designer heels clicking on the linoleum floor. Her eyes swept the room, the buffet line, the mismatched chairs, the centerpieces made from things found in nature instead of bought from stores. But also the faces, genuinely happy, genuinely grateful, genuinely connected. She forced a smile. So, this is where you disappeared to? No, I said kindly but firmly. This is where I appeared. People around us had gone quiet, sensing drama. Mrs. Doyle, who'd known our family for years, watched with sharp eyes. The Harris twins whispered to each other. Pastor Mitchell stepped forward diplomatically. Linda, would you like to say a few words? Maybe bless our meal? I looked around the room at all these faces, some familiar, some new, all valuable. I took the microphone from the pianist. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, I began, my voice steady. This party exists for a simple reason, because Christmas isn't about perfect place settings or color-coordinated decorations. I looked directly at Sarah for just a moment. Christmas is about making sure no one sits alone. It's about opening our arms wider, not narrowing our definition of family. Murmurs of agreement around the room. For anyone who was told not you this Christmas, tonight the answer is, yes you, come in, sit, eat, belong. Applause erupted, genuine and warm. Several people wiped their eyes. For the lonely, for the left out, for the ones who were cropped out of perfect pictures. Tonight, you're the center of the frame. The applause grew louder. The choir hummed, Amen, like a warm quilt settling over the room. Sarah's cheeks flushed red. So this is your reply? Your revenge? I handed the microphone back and turned to her with the gentleness I'd once shown her when she was a nervous young woman meeting my son's family for the first time. My reply is simple. You tried to lock a door. I opened a hall. She blinked rapidly. You're trying to make me look heartless. I tilted my head, studying her. I didn't make you anything, Sarah. Choices reveal themselves in light. More murmurs around the room, people nodding. Michael stepped between us. Mom, I'm sorry, I should have— Shh, I said, touching his arm. Tonight is about building, not breaking down. The children tugged at my sleeves. Grandma, can we help serve? Can we give out the presents? Of course, I said, my heart swelling. You'll be the best helpers here. They ran to get aprons from the kitchen, little red ones I'd thought to buy just in case. With the seriousness that children bring to important jobs, they began passing rolls and refilling water glasses. Every person they served smiled at them, thanked them, made them feel needed. Michael moved to the old piano, his hands hovering over the keys. I haven't played in years, he said softly. Music remembers, I told him. Even when we forget. He began to play Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. The room hummed along, voices blending in harmony. Sarah stood at the edge of it all, looking small in her perfect dress, watching her children bask in unconditional love. Mrs. Doyle approached her. You must be so proud, she said kindly. Linda raised such a good son, and these grandchildren of hers, they're just delightful. Sarah managed a tight smile. Thank you. She talks about them all the time at church, shows us pictures. You're blessed to have such a devoted grandmother for them. I saw Sarah's composure crack slightly. Would you like to sit? I asked, approaching her with a plate of food. There's always room for someone who decides to be family. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For the first time all season, the woman who'd had an answer for everything was speechless. She looked at the children, laughing as they helped serve dessert, glowing under the attention of all these strangers who'd made them feel important. She looked at Michael, playing piano with tears on his cheeks, finally remembering who he used to be. She looked at me, offering her kindness despite everything she'd done. And slowly, she sat down in the chair I'd pulled out for her. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? Be imperfect, messy. Let people see me when everything isn't controlled. I sat beside her. You don't have to be perfect, Sarah. You just have to be present. Pastor Mitchell stood up. Before we finish tonight, I'd like us all to remember why we're here. Not just because Linda opened her heart and her arms wide enough to hold all of us, but because Christmas is about welcoming strangers, feeding the hungry, and making sure love wins over fear. Amen, voices chorused around the room. When the gifts were finally distributed, I found one left at the bottom of the basket. To someone who matters, I read aloud. I looked around the room, then pressed it into Sarah's hands. For me? She whispered, staring at the carefully wrapped package. For anyone who chooses we over me, I said gently. For anyone who decides that love is bigger than pride. She unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a small wooden picture frame, simple but elegant. And in it was the original uncropped family photo from last year. All of us together, imperfect and real and complete. She stared at it, her breath catching. I kept the original, I said softly. Because real families don't crop people out. They find ways to fit everyone in. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Linda, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I— Shh, I said, covering her hand with mine. Use tonight for listening. Use tomorrow for learning. Use next year for loving better. Later, after the hall was swept and the dishes were cleared, after the last guest had been hugged goodbye, My son wrapped me in his arms. "I'm sorry, Mom," he breathed. "I should have stood up to her. I should have protected you." "You were protecting your marriage," I said. "I understand that. But you can protect both, you know. Love doesn't have to choose sides." He laughed through his tears. "Next Christmas I'm hosting, and you're bringing those stockings that match what matters. Names, not colors." Sarah approached us, the picture frame clutched in her hands. "I don't deserve grace," she said, her voice raw. "Good thing Grace doesn't check qualifications," I replied, smiling. "It just comes when called." We stepped outside into the snowy night. The children were building snow angels on the community center lawn, their laughter echoing off the quiet street. "Look, Grandma," Emma called. "I made one for you." I looked down at the perfect angel shape in the snow, arms spread wide like an embrace. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." "Just like tonight," she said, running back to hug me. Tonight was beautiful. We stood there in the snow, all of us together, watching the children play. Finally, a real Christmas. They tried to keep me away from Christmas, and tonight they saw what happens when you lock a door in my face. I build a bigger hall. A hall with room for everyone. A hall where love wins. A hall where family means everyone who chooses to stay. But tomorrow's story? It's even more personal. After my surgery, they left me alone in the hospital bed like I didn't matter. What I did when I recovered left them begging for my forgiveness.